I suppose now you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, I can hear you too.
So,
Very good.
are you aware that the timing changed 9:30, I guess, from tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll start 30 minutes early because I have another one who has joined and that starts at 8:30. Now,
Sure.
due to these technical issues, every day we get to have only for 40 minutes. So I didn't want it that. So,
Right.
yeah, sometimes I'm late, sometimes technical issues, sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted a 30 minutes buffer.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. I hope you don't mind.
No, sure. Actually, it works out good for me also because it's not 9:30 instead of 10.
That's good to hear. Ah, okay. Where were we? We're going to talk about dynamic time series today.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Design testing. Yeah, we were here yesterday. So the different time, I mean, types of dimensions we talked about yesterday. One is accounts, and the other one is time. Then the country, which is basically the region,
Right.
and then the currency and attribute. Now, out of these types of dimensions, there are two dimensions which are calculated in the very first place, no matter what application it is. It's accounts and time. This is what you need to remember.
Okay.
Um, and then we go to the period to totals. Now, we have this YTDs, MTDs, then HTDs, which is history to date. All this sort of time series.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so how could you achieve that? Now, let's say the requirement is he wants to look at QTD. Let's say you're in the month of what? May, and May falls under which quarter?
Quarter
So
two.
it falls under the quarter two, and then under quarter two, it's April, May, and June. So you're in May and you want to find or analyze some sorts of combination of some sorts of account details until that month in the quarter. Okay, then he would probably want to look at the QTD data with
Right.
respect to May, or
Right.
he wants YTD, so it's starting from January to May. So these are the types of time series. That's what we call it in space. It's dynamic time series. How are you going to achieve it? Is someone who wants to achieve this, let's say, the application wants the dynamic time series for YTD. Okay, so
Right.
what he might need to do is create a member YTD.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the first member, and then under that January,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's YTD until January, and then if he wants until February, YTD again, Jan and Feb, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
another Again, YTD, Jan, Feb, March.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
YTD, Jan, Feb, March, April. So that's the logic, you know. That's how it should work. So
Mm-hmm.
so he has to create a dimension under the dimension YTD as a member, and then under YTD every month by month, the incremental monthly addition should be done.
Right.
Now, if it is QTD1 or quarter one under quarter one Jan, and again another quarter one member under that Jan Feb, quarter one Jan Feb March, and then quarter two April, quarter two April May, quarter two April May June. Yeah, that's how you basically design if you want the data
Mm-hmm.
here. Yeah, if you let me expand this. I think it's too minute for you.
Yeah.
So if you look at the members, you know, under the year total time, which is the QTD hierarchy, let's look at the QTD hierarchy. And a QTD, I mean, if you're looking at the time dimension, I'm sorry. If you're looking at the time dimension, you have quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, and quarter four. Under quarter one, you will have Jan, Feb, March. Likewise for the rest of the quarters, and then you will have another member which is quarter to date, which is just a label, because you don't roll up this value anywhere. It's just for the reporting. So you do it for label only. Under that you will have a shared member. It says that you're sharing the same January value, and then you will have quarter Feb, another label. QTD Feb, that's until Feb. QTD March, that's until March. QTD April, April will have only one shared member. So that's how you design. And under that, again, you will have year to date. Let's say you want the year to date to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So year to date will be a label.
Mm-hmm.
Under that, YTD Jan, it will include Jan. Under that, YTD Jan, YTD Feb, so it includes Jan Feb. In the same fashion, I mean, the members keep adding on.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense?
Yep.
Yeah, so if you look at the YTD hierarchy on the right-hand side, it clearly explains, you know.
Yep.
So this is one way of achieving it. However, this is something what the logic is. But in Essbase, it has a member property on a time dimension. Okay, for this member property to be enabled, the dimension type should be time. It cannot be applied on any dimension. Okay,
Right.
so the dimension type should be time, and under that, so let's say you have quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, and quarter four under a year. Okay, so you go to quarter one and then you go into member properties. Now, quarter one, what level is it? Is level one, level two, generation one, generation two?
One is level one.
Yeah, and generation wise?
Generation, how do you go from the top?
From the top.
Second second generation, I guess.
Second generation, yeah. So what you do is you go into you right click on quarter one and then you go into dynamic time series. There is an option of dynamic time series. Once you select that, it will give you a list of the dynamic time series, if it is YTD, if it is QTD, whatever it is. So let's say QTD, you go into QTD and then you mark the generation as level 2. So it will treat that as a QTD time series.
Okay. So this is you're talking how about the quarter one. I see a plus sign next to quarter one, right? So and there
Yeah.
are three members. So is that even right when I said it's a level 0? Isn't it level? But if we expand under quarter one, right?
Under
It has
quarter
three
one, you will
members.
have Jan, Feb, and March. So
Right.
Jan, Feb, and March are level zeros, and
Okay.
this would be level 1. So
Oh,
what happens is when you expand this Jan, Feb, and March, Jan, Feb, March will also have the plus operator, which is the consolidation. Uh, it rolls up the values at Jan, Feb, whatever it is, to quarter one, and then the roll up will happen up to year.
right.
Yeah. So you'll have the plus.
Okay.
How do you say? Yeah, the operator.
Okay.
But I mean, you don't want to do this actually, having labels with quarter to date and having a long chain of members and then sharing the values from above. There is
Right.
an easiest way. All you have to do is you got to select whatever the member you want to have the dynamic time series on. And the first thing you need to do is you cannot do that on all the dimension types. It has to be a time dimension. Under that, you
Mm.
go to whatever member you want to apply the dynamic time series. Here, let's
Okay.
say quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, and quarter four. Then you
Mm.
pick one at a time, right click, and then you go to the dynamic time series option. Under the dynamic time series option, it will give you a list on the left hand side, which is YTD, QTD, HTD, MTD, all these sorts of time series on the left. Now, since you're at the quarter, you choose the quarter to date, which is QTD, and then you will match the generation. What generation is it at? It's on generation 2. So you will mark it as 2 and then save it. So you don't have to do all this, when you don't have to do you don't have to create these sorts of members of the outline if you just mark it as the dynamic time series as QTD. So it
Okay.
saves a hell lot of work.
Right.
Let me see if there is any way. Yeah, here. See? So when I go and right click on a member, okay, and then you choose dynamic time series members.
Right.
And here it will give you an option. QTD, you want to QTD, okay, select it, and then select the generation. Now, YTD is done at the YTD member. You cannot do it on the quarter one member because it doesn't make sense.
Right.
If you're doing it, then you're doing it wrong.
Right.
Yeah. But this is very important, Romkey. You need to understand this because if you don't do this, there is no QTD, there is no MTD, or there is no YTD. Now, especially for their reporting purposes, this is very important. Understanding how to use the dynamic time series.
Okay. Quick question. So level 0 members go from the bottom of the tree, right? And generation 1 goes the other way, from the other way?
From the top. Yeah. That's right. Basically, when you talk about generations, it's the ancestors which you're talking about. Now, when you're talking about levels, it's their level zeros where you start from. Here, these are the steps to set up dynamic time series members. In the outline, select the time dimension. And then from the edit menu, select edit member properties. And then the member properties dialog box is displayed. Under that, you will have to choose dynamic time series. Yeah, here.
Yep.
Very simple, but
Right.
very important. Okay, now let's get to what are the dynamic calculation members, basically. Any idea?
Dynamic calculation members. You mean dimensions or members?
No, the members. These are the dynamic calculation members.
No.
Give it a thought. There are stored members. Okay, let me give you a hint. There are stored members, and then there are dynamic calculation members.
Like, the year-to-date and quarter-to-date values, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
The year-to-date and quarter-to-date values, they're probably.
That's time series. That's time. Let's not talk about time now. Time is done. So dynamic calculation
Would be a formula for like gross margin, sales time.
Right. Now, so why dynamic calc is on your flat file, everything which is available, it's the stored members basically. Okay,
Right.
whatever the values are, they go and get stored on the members. Now there are a few members which, I mean, where the data has to be calculated. It's basically the derived values.
Right.
Yeah. So these members are tagged as the dynamic calcs.
Right.
And then you will have a member formula against it or a consolidation operator against it. So it calculates and populates the value on the fly. Nothing is saved. It's just on the fly. So when you go to this member on your smart view, as soon as you select that member, it calculates and displays the value. So it's not a value which is stored. It's calculated and displayed. And then there are two things which you could do on this. When it is calculated and displayed, you also have an option to save that after the calculation and display. And there is other way you calculate and display on the smart view, but you don't save it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every time you go to that combination with that member, it calculates and display, and then it will not save.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. Then there is other way if you want to play it around. Let's say you want to calculate it and then save it in the block in that member. Then you save it as dynamic calc and store. There are two storage properties. So one is dynamic calc and the other one is dynamic calc and store. Now, what are these advantages and what are the disadvantages? So one, it reduces, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm saying the advantage is maybe the time of retrieval might be quicker because it's always
when it is dynamic calc and store.
Right.
Yeah, but what if the values keep changing or keep changing?
Yeah, that's you have to recalculate it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want the application to calculate the values every time you go to that combination, then it's dynamic calc. Now, if you don't want it to calculate every time you go to that member, then you want it to do it just once and then save the value there. Okay, that's when you use dynamic calc and store. And to be very practical, we don't use dynamic calc and store 99% of the time, unless there is a real requirement for it. It's always
Right.
dynamic calc.
Okay.
So what are the advantages? It reduces the batch database calculation time. How does it reduce the calculation time? Because it doesn't calculate it as a part of the calculation with the consolidations around it. It's only calculated when you want to get that calculation. So it's like this. You want it, you get it. It's not that you always have it there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's how you are reducing the batch database calculation time, because you're not calculating it unless and until you want it. So someone who
Right.
wants that data has to go to that member.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's not how do I say? When you do calc all on the dimensions or on the application or the database, the whole database is calculated. Okay,
Right.
but these members who are marked as dynamic calc, they are not calculated.
Mm-hmm.
So that saves time.
Right. Okay.
Reduce disk storage usage. How do you back it up? So it's simple, right? It's not store. So it's not occupying space. So you're reducing the disk storage usage. And then it calculates on the fly and displays it. So it doesn't really hold the value in there. And then there is reduced database restructure time. I don't really know how this happens, but there has to be some way around. It is reducing the restructuring time. Yeah, I can explain it. So why restructuring is the question. What is restructuring? Why do you do it? Now, when you say restructuring, it's basically to improve the performance of the queue. Okay.
Right.
Now, due to this high load of data, every now and then, very frequently, you keep loading the data, and then you keep retrieving the data. That forms the fragmentation. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like every storage property. I mean, it's a part of storage. You have the fragmentation when you keep hitting the same place in the memory, and then performance slows down.
Mm-hmm.
When you retrieve the values, the memory gets dirty, and then it keeps using the new spaces instead of using the old spaces, and then it
Mm-hmm.
runs out of the new spaces. That's how the fragmentation happens. So every now and then you need to defragment it. So this is one of the techniques where you restructure. How do you restructure is you can have it done at 3 levels. One is at the dense dimension level. The other one is at sparse dimension level. And the third one is at the outline dimension level.
Mm-hmm.
The outline level, sorry. So at the outline level, all you need to do is if you rename a member name, okay, if you just rename a member, it's like the whole combinations change, right? And then the whole outline gets refreshed. When the whole outline gets refreshed, you will have new, how do I say, new parts of memory, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the whole thing changes, the combinations change. It's altogether a different block now. It's not going to the same block anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense?
Yep.
You just change one member name and the whole thing changes.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the restructuring happens. So
Okay.
this is one of the maintenance techniques to have the performance level up for an application or a database. So when you do this, what it says is it reduces the database restructure time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how does it reduce it? It's again the same logic. If you rename a member, the
Mm-hmm.
whole blocks, the whole blocks, the number of blocks basically, or the size of the blocks, everything gets changed.
Mm-hmm.
Not the size of the blocks, but yeah. So a new block is created for every combination now with respect to that member,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, does it impact the members of the dynamic calc? No, it doesn't, because there is no operator against these dynamic calcs. Moreover, there is a member formulae, and then you only get to have the value in there once you get to that member. So it doesn't affect the restructure time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't contribute to the restructure time. That's what I'm trying to explain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, uh, that's one of the advantages. What it means is the whole restructured time. If you have, it's inversely proportional. The
Mm-hmm.
more number of dynamic calc members, the less time it takes for the restructure.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is, to put it in very simple terms.
Okay.
And then it also reduces the time for the backup. Why? Simple. There is no data stored there. So the backup time increases if there is a stored data. Simple.
Mm-hmm.
Agree?
Yep.
Data store, memory occupy. If there is a memory occupy, the backup takes longer time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, but it also has the other way it affects the performance. One, it increased the retrieval time. If it was stored, retrieval time is very, very faster. Because it's
Mm-hmm.
dynamic calc, it has to calculate and display it on the fly. So the retrieval time is it's going to increase. Okay.
Right. Right.
Um, may change the calculation order. Why does it change the calculation order? Because you have a member formulae on it. So
Right.
the normal flow is disrupted basically.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is, the explanation. Let me see if I have something really important which we could discuss. Okay, this one is very important. Dynamic calculation may produce incorrect results. When you change a member from stored to dynamic calc, be sure to test calculation results, just to make sure that everything is in place. And here we talk about dynamic calc and store.
Mm-hmm.
We already spoke about it. So in the dynamic calc and store, what you need to understand is it calculates and stores the value, and the next time you go to that member, it doesn't calculate. It will show you the stored value.
Mm.
So one-time calculation and then store, and after that, it's just the retrieval. Okay, time balance. This is, I think we will only have 10 minutes now, and I don't want to get in there. We'll do this tomorrow. You can go through this. It's very simple, but very important. Like time series, this is also very important. Time balance. It's very, very simple. It's just that most of the times it's for the inventory. You know, you want the opening stock of that quarter. Okay, so you will choose time balance first, basically, TB first. So when you use this time balance first, it will show you the opening balance for the first month of that quarter. And if you want the closing inventory, then it's TB last. If you want the average, it's TB average. It's very simple. Yet we will discuss this tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll start 30 minutes early, and then we'll do that, and that's going to take some 15 minutes. After that, implied sharing. This is important. Implied sharing. Yeah, we're going good. We're going really good. I think what you may need to do is you need to revise a little.
Okay.
I don't know if that's feasible for you over the weekend. I know you're pretty much occupied during the day and the night. So during this weekend, you probably need to revise everything, and then we can get back.
If there's any particular chapter you need me to focus on, if you can just shoot me an email or just tell me. When I have some time during lunch tomorrow or during the weekdays, I can go.
Don't bother. What the whole idea is, I mean, if you have some hours in the weekend, just take a look at whatever we discussed. It's just that you need to have it on the back of your mind. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, go through basically the guide, right? The one you're showing me.
Yeah. Just the basic stuff. We didn't go in. I mean, the approach is being very nice so far. We are not hard hitting anything. Okay. But we are covering a lot of stuff. Although the thing about this is, it seems very easy to understand. Okay, the whole logics which we apply, because these are the logics which we've been applying for years, on Excel.
Right.
On Excel, you do that stuff. I mean, every day you look at those reports and skim through the reports, or YTD, MTD, but to apply that logic here in Essbase is a little different. That's all. And so it looks very simple when we talk about it, but when you apply it on the outline, when you are designing it, I mean, it kills you. So it's just that you need to have everything on the back of your head, but when you're implementing it, okay, you recollect. Okay, so this is what I was supposed to do. So let's do that. That's how it is.
Right. Now, so Mohammed, quick question. So when we do the lab next week, right? Is it possible for me to? I can share my screen and my outline and kind of apply them as I kind of do it here. Would that make sense? As opposed to watching something or.
I mean, I hate the idea of watching. What's the point if I'm doing it? You're the one who's going to do it, and you're going to share the screen, and then we will go along.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, you mentioned like a case study or something, right? So if we can tailor it or basically apply the case study, I can share my screen and you can just walk me. We're basically creating a ASO cube, creating the hierarchies, like a simple something like that, just to.
I mean, the case study which I'm talking about, it's so nice that you would love it.
Okay.
When you would love it, having the members created and having the logic applied. It's very nice. It's very nice.
Good.
You would like it. Yeah. I think it's here. Where is it?
Oh, so we're basically the same Oracle case study. Got you.
It's a Big Corp, something like that. I don't remember what's the name, but it's Big Corp, I guess. Yeah, here.
Oh, okay.
Cool. So this is where we start there.
Okay, that's good. So, yeah, I think this will
See
put it all together.
It starts from starting the services, creating generic time dimensions. It's nice. It's really nice.
Great.
It's in this file, D6397, just two. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we'll start early tomorrow. Okay.
Okay. And then the new line, right? The new meeting invite.
I think so. I'm waiting.
Right. Okay.
Once I have it, then I mean they will share it with you as well.
They already sent it to me, so I thought they would send it to you. You want me to forward it to you, or?
No, I'll have a different link. I mean, I'll have a different.
Okay.
I think I'll have a different link. Yeah.
Okay. No worries. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Have a good day or good night. Actually, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No problem. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Bye bye.